3 years ago, I couldn't even leave my bed. I was non-functional, nonverbal. I was having panic attacks from the moment I woke up until the moment I went to sleep. My mom only knew I was alive because I would send her pictures when she would check in. And this past week, I stood in a room full of people and told that story multiple times without falling apart. The difference wasn't willpower, it was support. If you're new here, hello. My name's Alicia, and I help women who feel trapped in shame, isolated in silence, and exhausted from fighting their own hands break free from the grip of trichotillomania using nervous system regulation and internal support so that they can rebuild trust with their body and finally feel in control again. And today, I'm not just talking about hair pulling. I'm talking about collapse. Because collapse doesn't disqualify you. Sometimes it forces you to rebuild correctly. So 3 years ago, I walked away from a high-performing job. I had been there for about 3 years, and at that point, I was also making six figures. Life was great, right? From the outside, I looked so happy. But internally, something had already started unraveling. And once I resigned, it spiraled fast. Money disappeared within 6 months. And when the money went, so did my identity. I remember telling my husband how I felt like I failed him. I felt like I failed my kids. I felt like I failed my family. And then my nervous system gave out. I didn't just feel stressed. I collapsed and I was stuck in bed. Panic attacks from morning to night, every single day. There were days that I couldn't even form full sentences. And the part that still gets me is that I couldn't even speak to my kids. And that was painful because I was the strong one, right? And my poor husband, that man had to deal with me just crying all the time. And my mom would text, and I would reply with pictures just so that she knew I was alive. And then my best friend, Nicole, she would sit there and tell me, like, if I didn't respond to her text messages or calls within 3 days, that she was going to show up at my front door. Mind you, she lives like 3 hours away. And no, with my kids, my youngest was 11 at the time. If I could even just muster up enough strength to say his name, at 11 years old, he knew. He would come lay next to me so that I could put my hand on him, so that I could even just simply breathe. That was my capacity. That was also my rock bottom. Now, at the time, I thought I failed. I thought I was weak. I was shredding my hair, constantly ripping it out. And I thought I lost my edge. I lost my spark, right? Now, what I understand now is this. My nervous system had been running in survival mode for far too long. And when you operate in high performance for years, pushing, producing, achieving, your body can stay in stress longer than you realize. But stress doesn't just live in your thoughts. It lives in your body. Your breathing changes. Your sleep completely shifts. Your digestion alters. And your heart rate stays at like a constant elevation. And your brain, she starts prioritizing survival over clarity. So when the job ended and my identity cracked, my system didn't have like a buffer. There was like no buffer left, right? And it sure as hell didn't ask me politely for rest. it shut me down. And when your nervous system feels unsafe, your body reacts before your mind can even reason. Okay? So that's why I couldn't speak. That's why I panicked all day. That's why everything felt catastrophic. I wasn't broken. I was overloaded. And overloaded systems, you know what they eventually do? They collapse. But eventually, the shift came. And it wasn't dramatic. It was the realization that I could not rebuild this alone. Okay? Yes, I had my husband. Yes, I had my mom. Yes, I had my best friend. All right? But I needed support that stabilized my body. Not just motivation, not just mindset. I'm talking internal support. That's when this silly little drink became part of my rebuild. Not as magic, not as a cure, but as stabilization. And you want to know what it helped me do? It helped my body regulate. I wasn't snapping at my husband anymore. I wasn't overwhelmed about everything. I could pause. And when your nervous system stabilizes, you can actually use the tools that you already know. Because before that, I couldn't access anything. Now, after stabilization, I could respond instead of react. And that's when my brick by brick by brick rebuilt started. Now, it wasn't glamorous. It was small. It was intentional. Getting dressed, having one steady conversation with someone I missed, going for a walk, learning how to speak to my nervous system in a language that it understood. Because if you stick around long enough, you'll hear me say this so much. Your nervous system doesn't speak English. It speaks safety, consistency, support. Internal stabilization plus external regulation, that worked together accelerated everything. And if I had only done the external work, it would have taken me so much longer. But supporting my body internally gave me a foundation. And then from there, capacity expanded. And you might be wondering what happened to my voice. So let's fast forward this to this past week. I stood in a room of hundreds of people. And many of them asked me about my story, and I told it repeatedly. And what mattered wasn't that I got to walk across the stage. It was that I didn't have to leave that room every 45 minutes just to regulate. I didn't hide in hallways. I didn't disappear. I stayed. I felt supported. I felt seen, and I felt heard, and fully myself. So the win wasn't the stage or the recognition. The win was staying in the room. That is capacity. And capacity is built. Am I exactly where I want to be financially? Not yet, but I'm well on my way because I'm rebuilding, right? And this is coming from somebody, me, who I was told that I would never be successful again. And here I am building again. Not from ego, not under the umbrella of somebody else, but from regulation, from support, from stability. And if you're in a season of collapse right now, I want you to know I see you and you are not broken. You are, however, overloaded, and you don't rebuild by trying to be perfect. You rebuild by stabilizing first, brick by single brick, with support. And sometimes that support looks different than you expected. But when your nervous system feels safe enough, your life can expand again.